Namaste. Japa kusuma sankasham kashyapeyam mahadyutim tamorim sarva papagnam pranatosmi divakaram. We bow down to the Lord, the Dinakara, the Bhaskara, and the Kiranakara of the whole world who brings us day, brings us hope, brings us shine, and is always glorious through his self gloriousness. We have this consummate artist on Sankatha, an initiative by RASAGRAAHI, Dr. Professor Vasanth Kiranji on board. We welcome you heartily onto the board, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much, Mr.
you for accepting the invitation and being part of this internationally acclaimed male dancers conversation series. And it's been an honor to have you on board. I
The pleasure
think
to be
we do
mine.
not require any introduction for Dr. Vasanth Kiranji. Yet, I will try to make a small attempt to introduce him to you all through a very short and a nutshell manner as much as possible to encompass his great sadhana and a wide spectra of sadhana he's into. Dr. Vasanth Kiran is a world renowned Indian classical dancer, scholar, academician, and a professor of both dance studies and marketing. Having done his PhD in both management and dance, he holds MBA from Marshall University, the US, and has been a visiting professor for universities in the US, UAE, Germany, Italy, and France. He has served as founding HOD and Director of Performing Arts for two universities and established the department to national and international reputation. He is associated with AIU for almost 2 decades as jury member for national and zonal youth festivals and also is serving on several boards in reputed central, state, and private and deemed to be universities. He is well-known motivational speaker and personality development prolocutor. He has lectured at faculty at IAM, IIT, BITS, and many more top institutions in the world in the area of management. He is an expert of management education and sits on boards of several B schools and is awarded Best Professor both in management and performing arts departments. He has represented India to over 26 countries for performances, lectures, seminars, workshops, spreading the very essence of Indian culture through dance. As a composer and lyricist, he has composed over 100 compositions for the repertoire of Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi, which are greatly performed by well known stalwarts of dance world today. Thousands of students are trained by him across the world, including several film stars of South Indian film industry. He is currently settled in Kadiri in Andhra Pradesh, where he is building a residential Gurukulam, specially for poor and underprivileged, and everyone and anyone who seriously want to practice Indian classical dance and aim to make it the world make it world dance center for performing arts in India. Several coveted international and national honors have been bestowed on Dr. Vasanth Kiran, including the Aryabhatta International Award, Bhimsen Joshi Rashtriya Puraskar, an award by Karnataka Nritya Kala Parishad, and many more to name. As I told you all, he's a well-known artist and a scholar amongst us, and we're very. He's a pride of the whole South India and the whole world for classical dance. So, as I told you, it will be a very short introduction about the great sadhana which he has been done, he's done, and he's doing, and especially as we all know, his interaction with great gurus of Bharatanatyam and especially the Kuchipudi gurus, where he interacted with them and brought out many compositions and kind of structuring and bringing up the Kuchipudi parampara in an academic framework. So we have Dr. Professor Vasanth Kiran with us on board. Welcome again, Vasanth.
Namaskara. Thank you so much. Thank you. I would just like to maybe hum a prayer on Ganesha of a line,
Please.
and then we can just begin. अगजानन पद्मार्कम् गजानन महर्निशम् अनेकदन्तम् भक्तानां मुपास्महे Thank you.
So divine it was. And as usual, it had the touch of the Kuchipudi parampara and a little bit of that Desi tint to
Right.
it. That was really nice to hear. Thank you so much, Vasant.
Always.
We all know that you've been very established now, but how did it all begin? All of us, I think, have that very unique journey which we have been part of this divine art form. We get into it, touch with it, but slowly engulfed into it. I would say art has embraced all of us and brought into a community. So, how did it happen to you? And was it? Is there anybody in your family so that it was in your blood itself, or you're the first one in the family? Because it would be a different kind of a story. Each one of us are sharing, and I think it's 54th episode, and all the 53 stories were different and very
Yes.
individualistic. So, we would like to hear you from there.
Yeah. First of all, congratulations, Mr. Sagar, for doing this fantastic job. Because on one side, male dancers are considered to be a small minority amongst the female-ruled art form today. To bring them all together in one after the in the episodes in this form and introduce and let world know about all of them, and every single person is doing their own great work in their own way in their own corners of the world. So you're doing a daunting task, and it's something that you need to be applauded in great sense. And I feel very privileged to be part of such a series where I really saw some worthy names that I've read in the series that you've mentioned. My journey, the way it started, is a very silly thing, and every time I tell this because I really laugh out aloud. It started very accidentally. I didn't intend to join any dance class as such, because we belong to a very orthodox Andhra family where not joining an IIT or a medicine or going to America after you finish your engineering is a big crime. So you're considered to be absolutely not worthy being part of a society if you're not part of an IIT, cracking yourself. This is kind of a background that they belong. However, my parents were a little different. Thanks that we were brought up in Karnataka. Maybe that was a little change for us. I grew up in Hubli, Uttara Karnataka, the Gandu Mettida Naadu Namadu. So Ali, what was very interesting was dance was accident to me, because in the streets that I lived, in the same lane was a guru called Guru Sandhya Vaidya. Madam ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಪಾಠ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ, and there was another girl that we used to play with. I was 6. There was another girl of 7, so there were about few people we used to play. So ಅವಳು ಒಬ್ಳೆ ಹೋಗೋದೇನು ಅಂತ we used to go along with her. So I was a horrible kid, so I used to annoy every kid around. So from the window when she was dancing inside, I used to tease outside. So I used to go on teasing on the way back. She was a good friend, so I thought teasing is part of the game. But one day that she started crying loudly, and the teacher called me inside and said, Nina Athara, you should not be doing it because she's getting disturbed. Why don't you, whatever doing outside, do it inside? So I
Oh.
said, okay, this sounds nice. And then I said, I can tease her a little more closely. So I came inside the class and started teasing. Rather, it started as a lesson, and my journey started and continued with her for good time, under the guru. And then my actual polishing happened, especially with my basics, was under Guru Mandakini Udupi. Very few know about such a great guru. She used to come all the way. She was basically from South Canara, but she used to come from Dharwad to Hubli. And fantastic teacher. I mean, what an amazing sense of Saushtava and Angashuddhi that she brought into her body. From there, after several years, I moved to Bangalore, and then I studied under Guru Bhanumati, a teacher, for quite a good time. And I remember she really supported me in the times when when I came to Bangalore for the first time years ago, I was lost, because when I saw dance, I felt now with the Uttara Karnataka. Frankly, Hubli Dharwad is an absolute popular place for Hindustani musicians. We have Bharat
Right.
Ratna to Padma Vibhushan to Padma Bhushans to Padma Shris to everybody there. ಆದರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡಾನ್ಸಿಗೆ ಇತ್ತೀಚೆಗೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಹೆಸರು ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋರು ಒಳ್ಳೊಳ್ಳೆ ಗುರುಗಳು ಇರಬಹುದು. ಬಟ್ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದ್ರು. ದೇವರ್ ಗುರುಸ್, ಬಟ್ ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ವೆರಿ ಅ ಬಿಗ್ ಫೇವರ್ ಲೈಕ್ ದ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕ್. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಮಗೆ ಡಾನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ ಪಕ್ಕ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಟಚ್ ಬಂದು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಆ ಪ್ರಪಂಚ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ there was a new world altogether. So that gave a new rise together, and I said, no, I need to pick it up. So because we didn't have a background of music, Carnatic music ಯಾರು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, so it was all a big lack. book killa. So it was that myself push to get those books. So every time in a festival, instead of going on a vacation or buying a new dress for the birthday, I remember asking books to my mom. And in those days, we used to get cassettes. Those were about 15
Yeah,
rupees and 20 rupees. I
yeah,
still
yeah.
have collection of, and our cassettes are rare. In fact, ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಎಸ್ ಕೆ ರಾಜರತ್ನಂ ಪಿಳ್ಳೆ ಅವರು ಪಕ್ಕಿರಿ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಪಿಳ್ಳೆ ಅವರು ಹಾಡಿರುವಂತ ಕ್ಯಾಸೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅವಾಗಿದ್ದಿದೆ, and they don't believe that it is with me still ಅಂತ. So that's because those were the days. So I think that journey took very serious, and it took me to Madras later. And our journey in the ನಾನು ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ already I was a Bharatanatyam dancer. I had finished Vidvat and all that. But then I I introduced into Kuchipudi. My sister was married to Ballari, so there was Guru Jilani Basha, under whom because I was there and my brother-in-law was in Kannada culture department those days. So ಅವರು ಇಲ್ಲೊಬ್ರು ಗುರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ನೀನ್ ಹೆಂಗೂ ರಜೆಗೆ ಬಂದಿದ್ಯಾ, why don't you go and practice for some days? So that's how I went to him. And he just introduced me to Kuchipudi flavor, but nothing much serious about it. But Bharatanatyam was something that I was concentrating very seriously on. Then I once in Bangalore happened to meet Guru Padmabhushan Dr. Venkati Chinnasatyam Garu. And then somehow he got to know that I'm a Telugu and doing Bharatanatyam. And Sir always believes that Master Garu says Telugu people must do Kuchipudi. Somehow he has it in mind. So he called me and said, no, Telugu Vadu kada? I said, yes. So why are you doing Bharatanatyam? In a very funny way, not that he's any against or anything, but I
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
no, sir, because I do not have an opportunity to learn Kuchipudi probably because I live in a place called Hubli Anta. He said, then will you come to Chennai, because there was incidentally a workshop happening or a very regular Karyashala that happens. Why don't you come and join? Then I got a letter immediately in a week. And that was the time I think my life changed totally, because I went to Madras. And incidentally, I started connecting with a lot of great Bharatanatyam dancers in Chennai, and I got very close with them. And that's how my knowledge of Bharatanatyam started picking up, including Kalanidhi Mami and several other people on journey. And on the other side, Kuchipudi really started, my eyes of dance opened wide with him. And then immediately I was trained under Vempati Ravishankar Garu. Then I came back to Bangalore. I practiced with Guru Manju Bhargavi Akka. He was very, very, very mentored me, who held my hand. And I'm currently under also Guru Dr. Vedantam Ramalinga Shastri Garu, who's the principal of Kalapitam of Kuchipudi in the Kuchipudi village right now. Um, I find it a great knowledge. So I'm a student of life rather. So this is a little journey that all my gurus that came in, but in between I would have attended few people for some workshops
Workshop.
and other things also, which we picked up over time. But that relation stayed with every guru that I interacted, because I have friends everywhere. And then I think that also means I don't have enemies.
That's a
Right.
wise way to put it up. But yeah, it was a very nice journey because it's a very difficult and different task of getting exposed from an area which is not very dominant of this kind of a dance form, coming to Bangalore and then learning certain kind of an art form so seriously. But how was your support from your family for, like, when you decided that I'll leave Hubli and come to Bangalore and for learning dance seriously, like, full time?
I mean, absolute a direct conclusion of me being banned. But I had a deal with my dad. He was also yoga practitioner and he was a philanthropist. So ಅವರಿಗೆ ಕಲೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಬೆಲೆ ಇತ್ತು, but he did not know what it is to practice for a male dancer as a career or a future to take into classical dance. So I appreciate his worry then. So in 12th standard, I was also in NCC RD, and I was into sports. I played Coco for nationals, and then I had all those quotas that was good enough for my father to put into medicine. So
Medicine.
I was an MBBS student for a week. So, and my father was very happy because my brother and sister did not go into science. So he somehow felt that I am the last hope for science, which I beautifully wanted to chuck it. And medicine hogi ಒಂದ್ ವಾರ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾನು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು I removed apron. I told my father, Dad, I'm going to be a horrible doctor who will be dancing in operation theater. And when somebody is dying, I would probably do a karna or a mudra. I don't know what I'll be doing, but I would not be a doctor for sure. But someday you will call me Dr. Vasanth. So just believe me and leave me at this point. I quit that. And then I was forced to continue. Just to make him happy, I joined biotechnology as a sciences. And then I did that. I don't know what I did, but I did. But that's how was the support. Then they started realizing that I am not going to leave it anyways. They kind of understood that this guy is way beyond their control now. So ಅವನೊಬ್ನೇ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. I used to, in ninth and 10th, I used to sit in the train from Hubli. He used to put me in train and in near the toilet bench seat. And then sometimes with tickets, sometimes I didn't have time to go catch it with uniform. So I used to run and catch the train and request the TT. I remember the faces of the TTs also who helped me to not complain or throw me out of train and still said, okay, go ahead. Because the face had become familiar to them. Every weekend I used to travel to Bangalore to train. So I think now ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. So ಆ ಕಷ್ಟದ ಫಲ ಏನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ we started realizing what all is required. First time when I heard Natyashastra was much later in our days, and then I was like, what is this? Where is this? How is this? So that madness probably of wanting to know made us so mad about it. Then somebody says Natuvanga is not for you, but Natuvanarasanta. So for a long time we didn't touch it because we felt it is for gurus or it is for some very renowned people and all that. And then I held that instrument and started banging it really hard for a long time to practice it the way I am today. Today, I am, thankfully, people consider me as a good Natunar, and that came because I think everything was this self push within of wanting to achieve something. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಎದುರಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು I am being very independent since 13. I like being very independent. I started working in the evenings. I would do any work anybody gives me, and I would go pay the fees, and I educated myself. So that is how I kind of developed myself. From the
So
parents, there
actually,
was
this shows how ardent you were and the inner motive to basically acquire this art form, which is like a huge ocean. Somehow, I think you were, and I think to an extent you were very successful in your way because at the right time, probably you got the right exposure, some point of time, which was very much required, which is, I think, a good leap for you, which took from a normal life. If you would have been settled and say, I would have been very happy with the life you had, I mean, as a dancer in Hubli, to the way you just flew to Bangalore and opened up the spectra of things. In this point, I would like to
I
ask
would
you.
just, I'm sorry, I would just like to add one point. I still
Yes, yes.
remember what my father said, about learning dance. Yeah, I was feeling very bad because nan Yelli programs, whenever I go for competitions, he used to never come along with me, nor, I mean, very rare. So I used to ask him why you don't come. He said, about your dance class, about your teachers, now that you've chosen that that is your life or something, and you go face it. If your teacher beats you or does whatever to you, they never came to dance class, they never spoke to the teacher, nor they ever interfered and came and said, teach this to my son, teach that to my son. Nothing. Nor I ever asked my teacher, teach me this. I learned when they felt that I was worth teaching something.
What?
And over a period of time, today I'm proud that I have at least 38 padavarnams in 6 languages, that it's up on my mind. And I think that was because they never interfered. So this is a new lesson to the people, today's parents especially.
Yeah, I think that's very true because the true ability of the student will be known only to the teacher
Yeah.
until and unless, and especially this is not only by the wish of the student. This cannot be learnt, right? Like we cannot.
Oh, true.
I mean, nani kalibeka anta like today if you read it or something like that, it can't. The body has to respond. The whole body, mind, and your whole, what we say, whole everything, the whole complete yourself has to involve and something has to come out of it. So it takes a lot of time, which is not equivalent to any other scientific subject, study, which we generally do. Probably a little bit of shastra can be understood, which is like, kind of mugging up sorts, that kind of a thing, but not the actual practice of dance. That's a
I
good thing
always
which you
tell my
got.
students saying, two bodies can connect. I mean, guru gets introduced to the student, but the soul
Correct.
of the guru needs to connect to the soul of the student. I mean, that takes time.
Very true. Very true.
Until that
And
happens, the
that's
journey is very blind.
that only leads to Guru Kripa finally. Otherwise, if you're
Absolutely.
not being noticed positively by any guru, I think no Shishya can actually excel in the field. That's a wonderful point.
Guru
But
leka etuvanti guniki teniyakabodu. So that's something we remember
that's
now.
very true.
Yes,
Very
please.
true. So, do you feel as a person now? I think the scenario would have been changed if you have noticed. But did this reason that say a non-metro? student, if he wants to pursue Indian classical art form, now only metros, if you take up Bangalore, or if you take up Chennai, that is also a metropolitan city. Bangalore is also a metropolitan city. Otherwise, if you see, it's also Delhi or Ahmedabad or all these kind of metropolitan cities, probably because financially the dance teachers can survive too. So they have become the center for these kind of advanced learnings. But rather slowly now, probably in the last decade, we can find that the other cities, two tier, three tier cities, also there are good teachers, and the field has been growing up in a very good manner. So with your experience personally coming from a non-metro city, learning Indian classical dance, coming to metro city, what was your opinion then, and has the opinion changed, or it still remains the same, that no, if somebody has to learn classical art form, they have to settle down either in Chennai or Bangalore or say Mumbai or Pune or probably Ahmedabad, or there are centers which are possibly there? And I feel this is the intent probably for you to settle in Kadri, another second tier town. So that's what I just wanted to lead the question to. Three tier, third
Third
tier.
tier.
Oh, okay.
Small town, just known for a temple
Yeah,
around. See,
yeah.
okay, it's a very interesting question. Yes, there has been a time because biggest of the gurus were available in good major cities. It's not about learning. The learning can't happen anywhere, but it's about exposure. With cities like Bangalore and Chennai, it taught me a lot other than dance. So, as a dancer, dance is a very small component for me. There are many other things that, as a life of a dancer, it teaches you. Now, I fought the world of academics to really go forward and start something so big that world of dance had not thought of, or the university education systems had not thought of. So I think that kind of a courage, that kind of an exposure, that kind of a language, because I spoke bad English, I still remember. And when I left to US for my masters, and then after that, I think the life totally changed, and all of that exposure has really made me a different person. And today, as we rightly say, we just don't need dancers, but we need thinking dancers. We need fighting dancers, fighting not for anything else, but for the sake of art, for the sake of artists. So that as a combination is very important. So I think metro cities can do this. Training can happen anywhere. That's what I can tell you. Training can happen anywhere. There are excellent gurus in the corners of the country who are very silently doing their job because they don't like to be in the limelight as such. But student, after being trained there, need to also find a pathway to get into the actual world. I mean, how do you finally be noticed in Madras? How do you finally get noticed in Bangalore? That becomes something a very important part. Finally, Konark or Khajuraho festival, if you're featured, is what you consider to be a good dancer. Then how do you find a way to that? That you need to make your way. Not always your guru makes the way to you. Many a times you might even have a guru who will never want you to make sure that you make a way to there. But on a parallel to both, I think metro cities give you the kind of exposure that a dancer requires, while education of a dance can happen rather in smaller cities. I think it can happen in Kadri. Nobody disturbs. I start my class at 6 in the morning. I have this Gurukula Shishyas with me till 8 in the night. Undisturbed, totally, and we talk anything under the sun. Anything. Anything, right from language to Shastra to text to history to Dala to Natwanga to singing to vocal. And I improved a little singing over a period of time when I came aloof.
That's nice. So I think even it's a general thing, known thing, that even in a metro city, traveling to find the dance classes, and we easily can't find the guru which sets to each of those. I mean, our taste
Requirements.
and the matching and requirements in our own area. So it will be like traveling itself takes 1 or 2 hours. So probably in a smaller city, it's just like 1 minute or 2 minute or maximum 10 minutes drive, and they are there at your school, and they can spend more qualitative time with the guru, is what I think everybody talks about. And I think that also is being stressed. I think it's a wonderful point which you have put up, so that learning can happen anywhere. But then if you have to get exposed, I think metropolitan cities give you that kind of an point that you get to it. But yeah, so leading to it, also you made a question, and the quest that it has to be a personal effort to lead
Oh,
towards that performance as a performer. So I know how it was struggling, because the era both of us belong is very, very similar. Maybe you're like, 5 years or 6 years, a little ahead in terms of age. But the time which we came, the cassette time to what it is now in the CD and now YouTube. So the transition, I think we were in that transition period. But we could see that you went into the roots most of the time in both the fields, which I personally see. And though you were, I mean, graduated in the US, and your post graduation rather, I would say, but you came back and you went into the roots and finding out the actual paramparas, and you have brought down a lot of change to the framework, though be it Bharatanatyam or be it the other art form which you are doing, which is Kuchipudi. So what interested you to travel? Because people travel to temples, people travel to perform, people travel to recommend and things like that, ICCR and these that the visits are common as dancers for opportunities. But at the right time, when you have to develop yourself as own identity, you went back to the roots. That's something which is very, very unique about Professor Dr. Vasanth Kiran. So we wanted to know how this kind of a quest, because as you rightly said, people go to a guru who is very reputed, and his reputation gives them a little bit of limelight in the society of dancers, and they slowly start building their identity, but which was not in your case. It was a very different journey altogether. So can you please enlighten us about this factor as to how we can go back to the roots and actually find out knowledge from different people and still have our own identity?
Right. So, I was somehow pricked with the point of research in my learning. So, exams, courses. I think these exams and courses actually put you to a framework, and that forces you to learn something more seriously than you would have otherwise not. So, when I was researching, one day when I was discussing with one of my guides, I that very shockingly revealed to me. The point is, in whenever we talk about future of research for others, let's say, whenever we talk about research in sciences or research in management, we look at the futuristic perspective. We say down the line 20 years, down the line 100, down the line 200, 500, this is what it's going to be. But for dance, or rather music, we are talking, the more reverse you go, you're considered knowledgeable. I mean, we understood, for me it was a very revealing fact that on one side world is walking ahead, and for me to walk ahead in this field, I need to go back first. I need to go back and get connected to the people, sources who can tell me what it is, who can really tell me in the language of raw content. I mean, in actual raw way. ಹೀಗಿತ್ತು ಅದು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಏನ್ ಪಾಲಿಶ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಗಾಟ್ ಪಾಲಿಶ್ಡ್ ಇಸ್ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಐ ವಾಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟೆಡ್ ಇನ್. ಐ ವಾಂಟೆಡ್ ದ skeleton. So that made me go really find some of rare gurus. I was trained under a Devadasi in Tanjavur, and who worshipped and lived in Chidambaram, and so when her talks to me was very revealing, and she never revealed herself as a dancer first for many days. While I knew that she's a dancer, I went to her because of that, but she never even agreed over a period of time. And thanks to my and that made me also learn languages. I mean, I am very fluent with Kannada, Hindi, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, and all of that very fluently, because I think I learned that language connects me to people well. So with the Amma that I stayed at for a long time, I started talking, and one fine day, I started singing Husseini very badly, just to irritate her, because I realized she loves Husseini. And then she said, "Hey, abdi ella paadakudadu." Then I said, abdiya, dana eppadi paadano?" Then she started. And when she opened her mouth and the kind of songs that came out of her mouth, then I realized, my God, this knowledge is so intact. Even though she doesn't even want to accept what dance is, the dance is inseparable from her. That these lessons for me were very revealing, saying the knowledge is the key end of the day. Whatever you might have, name, fame, you might even have Padma Shri, you might have Padma Bhushan. But if somebody says, he might have everything, but then he doesn't have knowledge, I think it fails the whole purpose. And why that is important? Because my guru used to always tell me, saying they can take anything from you, name, fame, gold, positions, everything, but not the knowledge. Somebody can take your aharya, but they can never touch your satvika. So in that sense, I think knowledge is something that I was pricked, and I was really ignited about that fire to go back to the roots. That made me meet almost all the greatest legends of all the forms. I went met Satras, from some Satra in Assam, just when it was about to even get classical back then, and then I met a lot of great Manipuri gurus. I sat with Darshana Ben, for example, in Manipuri for a long time to discuss. And I was very lucky to get very close to Padma Bhushan Dr. Kanak Reliji. And I'm very lucky, I'm probably one of those rare ones who still have a very beautiful interaction with her for hours and hours on phone. And when I go to her home, she loves, because I've been associated with Nalanda as an examiner for some time now. So, and irrespective of the forms, I was connected. Birjuji had such a lovely chat with me for a long time about Venkatejina Satyam sir. So I think this meeting of these gurus every time made me realize not just about art form, but this opening up of each petal as a dancer. And that made me more humble and humble and humble. And I really came down and finally reached this place called Khadiri. So this is the
That's,
realization.
that's very interesting because, as you rightly said, research in dance is to go back rather than going and seeing something. And it's a very different thing as compared to the scientific and technological research which is happening. So
Yeah,
now
we have
coming back to,
interdisciplinary now, we have
yeah.
interdisciplinary people are working dance and psychology dance and something, this morning I was guiding somebody for, dance and therapy and dance and psychology. So that's fine as it is. But the core of these answers, this is already answered for us. Dance, Natya Shastra, to anything that exists much later until 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th centuries, books, they have answered every question that we might have today. It's just that we haven't understood properly.
So I think that quest of research was there probably invariably in you from a long, long time before. So how did it get into a very formal framework as such? Were you guided by somebody that okay, Vasant, I think you should pursue certain kind of a research in a formal way because you were one among them who did your decided to even do research because research is now coming up as a main venture nowadays because now masters is something which is now in the trend. Probably the PhD thing is coming up slowly now. It's not in that pace but probably in the first or second gear, but masters is in already in fourth gear. Nobody wants to stop at doing a normal junior senior or with what everybody wants to pursue. It's a good turn too. It's a good future for all the classical art forms, be that, and especially dance. Everybody wants to pursue masters now, and some people are going for MPhil and PhD too. But when we see
Right.
that you were somewhere who had that foresight that okay, probably this is the trend, and you were trendy long ago. So
Right.
actually, how did it happen? How did it happen that you
See, when I
fell
came
into
back,
this kind of formal research?
I was very actively part of corporate life. I've done all
Yes,
this
sir.
stupid 9 to 5 job and over hours, and you had a horrible boss and all of that. And then I was hardcore into marketing, and I was very popular as a marketing person also. So while that was happening, I finally realized that the time was a scarcity for me. I mean, to do something in the world of dance. So then I chose academics. Then I thought, at least if you go as a professor, after 5 o'clock, the college will close and they'll kick you out. And then, you are free as a dancer to teach or dance or whatever, they don't care. But that wasn't always true, anyways. So then I thought that this is how it is, and I entered the university into structures. But before which, when I came back to India, I understood when I was abroad, saying even master's thesis in India would probably they would give you PhD if you show your master's thesis what you've done abroad, because they were so serious. I had a Chinese guide, and his PhD was from Harvard, and he would screw the hell out of you, and I think that drilling and grilling and grueling research methodology, and that made me put research methodology in masters itself. In India, I think we were the first department when I introduced research methodology in a mandatory subject in MA dance, and we made sure they go through every single, so they easily clear NET UGC net exam. So that was the thing that brought me to the structure. Then I was part of AIU that you read in my profile, that Association of Indian Universities. I was
Indian
mentored
University.
by Dr. Samson David, and I used to be part of so many universities as different levels and jury member and etc etc. So I was really finding that university that do not disturb me, because I was also an employee, and still support me. And the guide there in those days, the guides weren't very serious thing, I mean, if you have a very great reputed guide, you're lucky. If not, then the guide would tell you, inga paarappa nee enna vena paniko. So whatever you do, you do it and bring it silently once in a year. If there is something you need to show your face, you please come and show your face. I mean, this was I'm talking about those times then. So it
True.
silently
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think during that, when I was doing research, also we realized if you search for quality research papers like we do in management or in sciences and architecture or engineering, you have this IEEE standards and etc. We do not really have this kind of a standards in performing arts. So
Yes.
normally papers research or publish ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ sometimes they don't know where to go. Nowadays people are suddenly organizing conferences and then you present your papers somewhere. But those days, very few opportunities were there. So you go find some historical conference and present a paper in history conference, or go to Sanskrit conference and present it. I remember doing all that. Or go present in management, suddenly talk them theater and management, because I needed one paper to be published.
Yes.
That
Yes.
was
As part of
something.
your PhD process.
Yes.
Yes.
And so that put me in this regime, and I was part of this beautiful university then called Alliance University. And I was hardcore a marketing professor. I was called as Dr. Hitler, I remember, because I was very strict with students on discipline part of it, but I would love to be hanging out with them. But there, one of the day, it started that there was a meeting, and I had this great chancellor who asked me if there's anybody, professors, who want to propose new departments as such, because we are also planning to open up on aeronautical had come up on the mind. So then I very sillily, so innocently went up to him very boldly and said, "Sir, I have a proposal." And he was from Uttar Karnataka, so I could have the leeway of speaking that language. So I went and said, "Sir, ನನಗೂ ಒಂದು ಐಡಿಯಾ ಬಂದತ್ರಿ, ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ." So is that ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಯಾವ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್? ಸರ್, ನಾನು ಡಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. Dance department madam, it will be very nice. I said, what is this? You bring me a DPR, in any corporate language, this is DPR. You make this project report and support and proposals and. So I made it all, and he was kind of impressed. He said, "Go ahead, start. What does it take?" So I think I am the first to start in private deemed universities. There were there like Bharati Vidyapeeth in Pune and Banastali in Jaipur. They already had deemed, but we were the first, 2F category, which is under UGC, a private universities, to start this. So I had to go to Delhi and also Karnataka ministers. I remember in Karnataka Higher Education Council, get those approvals, go talk to UGC people, find the manual, bring it down, match it to that is required in Kuchipudi. And lot of people in the fraternity were against that I'm starting Kuchipudi here. Bharatanatyam was already there, and many were happy that it exists, rather. But this I kind of really fought it out. So you being part as a teacher or a professor is not very big deal, but for you to start from an open empty room, and somebody said, "Tagoli ee room tagoli, one attached on hall ide, ad yen ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ." From there to, I remember taking a sweep in my hand and broomstick and start cleaning it, and then I requested for a computer and then kept it and started, and we went to each dance class requesting them to send students. We will teach them this and that and this. So that is a very big daunting task. And now you have so many universities talking about MA, and I am part of so many universities in some or the other way. But then the journey is very funny, that it started then, and now people understood that yes, it is possible, and there's nothing wrong. And thanks to NEP, New Education Policy, now that's going to go even more stronger. I went one more step ahead in my previous university and fought, saying engineering and other students also must have this as one of the electives. So
Arts.
they
Yeah.
open electives kodi anta. So that also we had then 300, 400 students from law, engineering and management. One of the classes in the week coming for theater or music or dance. So that picked up really well as a performing arts. And then we were respected equal to engineering and management, which was one of my strongest deems, to do that. So I was a
Excellent.
fighter.
Yeah, yeah. I think at some point of time, if you don't fight, I think nothing can happen in the conditions which we have in our country, be it performance, but we didn't know about the educational management thing. I think you were the one who were the first person whom we are talking to about bringing certain kind of an academic framework and how difficult it is, because it's nice to have a dance school or an institute, run it privately, get the exams done, and then get it. Or myself, or send my students to certain kind of universities, and they get graduated from there, and they still have, if they have gratitude, they say our names as I am still under this guru and I've done my MA or MFA from this kind of universities. That's common, but then getting it done is something which is a very very tough task. But in this regard, I want to ask you one question as to as of now, what we see as the syllabus generally as an MA or a master's course or a UG course, what do you think is basically lacking in a very generic way?
See, first and foremost, university's job is to not produce performers. Now, that is somewhere that everybody mistake, because everybody come with some background there, and they come with very different backgrounds in the classroom. Somebody's from Sambani, somebody's from Sambani, and somebody very, very clear about not touching their dances or something or whatever. So for me, university's intervention in your life is an absolute addition of that kind of a knowledge that you would have otherwise not got exposed being in your own dance class. That is one. Second, university system is a great exposition of directly interacting with several gurus of several banis, directly teaching you in the class and interacting in your guest lectures. I made sure that the biggest of the gurus came to the class, and I mean, I was very lucky, fortunate that they all agreed very, very fondly. They came and spoke to my students very openly, and they shared the knowledge. Even Karnataka, Radhakrishna sir, Antorna, Mala Shashikant madam, Auru. I mean, the Karnataka, we also brought that up to tell people that we have such a great parampara. I always correct people when somebody says Bharatanatyam is from Tamil Nadu, I start fighting with them. I said, no, that's not the case, because we now, after research, even now, if you tell that this, then I think what is the point of doing this?
I know.
It's a Dakshinatya. Thanks to Bharata, some things he's made it clear through vrittis and pravrittis. Then even now, if you call it as idu namdu, idu nindu anta, the yarappandu alla anta. There's nobody. So I think that was the way it works. I think university intervention is for one, the knowledge gaining, the exposure that you would never get, the kind of new trends that you might understand. Fourth, you will only be serious about that amount of Shastra. Otherwise, you will not be. Trust me, because you will never learn anything more than few shlokas. That is Asamita, Samita Hasta, Sam Bandhavya Hasta, whatever is required. Adillandre, you will never probably go serious about it. I think that is a great revelation for me that happened. And university education, we made sure that they also had a lot of fun. You know, we introduced subjects like makeup. We introduced subjects like lighting, aesthetics, acoustics. We introduced them about how do you go for application. We had language, English, and English language teacher had to only teach them how to write a grants, how to write an SNA letter, how to write a letter to Doordarshan, and this was very important. When somebody wrote to you, hey, you've been selected to Khajuraho, you don't just, I still get a mail saying, hey, thanks, is a reply to such a big festival selection. So how do you disciplinedly write a guru or talk to people? This manners part was taught in the university. I think this is absolutely something very interesting, that universities have a bigger role to play, apart from research.
Yeah, that is another field altogether. But then, the output of be coming from a management perspective now, do you find opportunities for all the students who are pursuing masters now? Because the number is increasing very exponentially, and I think even more than exponentially, we find, because I have my own students, more than so many of them, after they've finished Vidwat and other studies, they're now doing, after marriage also, they happily join. As you rightly said, they don't require that complete physical involvement in terms of doing performance kind of adabus, except the exam papers. So whoever are interested to pursue more and more knowledge have taken up university education, be it masters, and some people also are started doing PhD entrance and they're trying it. So but I am just wondering, because the time which we did masters, we had certain kind of a value to the certificate, because masters Madidira, that is how it was like. Because I think I was the third or fourth person in my city, or probably in the whole district, who had a master's degree certificate from my university. I still remember, I think, third person, except my guru's sons and daughters. It was next, I was the one who did it, but not under him, but from different university altogether. But so it was the scene then. But now I think I can find more than 100 probably in my own city, which is not a big city. It's a common thing now, because it's a good thing. I am very happy about that people know. And once they know the struggle which we have gone through, and what we are doing today, they will also appreciate. That is one thing which we all also have to support them. But do you think really there are opportunities? Because so many people, all the master schools and all the private and government universities are now full. I think the seats are full and everybody is pursuing it. But do we really have those many kind of opportunities? Or the UGC universities are creating such opportunities? Because if you come outside, they have to just run their dance class, which a normal person who is not even visiting the university is still doing the same. And my question is, how do they stand different for the present day? Because there is no opportunities for them in formal education. No universities have proper faculty fill up. As you know, probably you would be working with so many universities, they are very happy with adjunct people. Even universities, very reputed universities, I don't want to name them, in many states in south in India only, they are not ready to hire full-time faculties if the faculty is serving more than 10 years as adjunct also. There's no value for their service too. So in this condition, what are these going this masters going to be is my question.
Right. See, you would have never known me if I had not done what I have done.
Exactly.
And I am one of those lot of masters who have done. So it is, I think, on a very individualist perspective to be that fighter. You should be clear of what you want out of what you want to do. So the greatest gurus today don't have master's degrees or PhDs or anything
Correct.
of that sort, but they is equal to 100 PhDs by themselves. But Adartha, what does it mean? Is the opportunities, if not there, must be created, and you need to guide students how to do it. For example, when I was there in master's degrees, I used to make calls to these international school principals where dance teacher appointment was important, and instead of students, because they negotiate badly with students when it comes to salary.
Correct.
So I used
Correct.
to make sure that I send the profiles from our department and get it selected. I speak to the principal straight on the face and get the salaries fixed and then put my girls there. And they all were educated. And evenings I used to try to get them engaged into different dance classes and send them as adjunct teachers and get the
Kind of
fees,
intention.
get this fees from there to the college. So I said I can wait. I'll request a chancellor if need be that the fees will come late from this candidate because she is fighting it herself. And I've helped so many students like that who could not afford, and we gave a lot of support to them through jobs of the sort or any other sorts. Not that I gave any mercy to them, but I told them, you fight out, you work hard, you do it by yourself, and then you demand for what you want. I think that's what first thing. Second, now with new education policy 2020, I hope it's very clear to you that one can take dance as a subject, even with a combination of physics is
Yes.
one, maths, and
Yes.
third is dance. I mean,
Yes.
this you're free now. I think now every university will require performing arts. Recently, I was part of a big conference, international webinar where UGC people and AICT, they were all part of it. So, I mean, they were all halla malla. When I was making noise for performing arts, I said, "आप performing arts के बिना university कैसे रखते हैं? ऐसे ये होता ही नहीं है. तो आप performing arts रखे तो देखो." Then you have a faculty there who's worth having. I mean, choosing the kind of faculty is your choice. Government universities, it is their unfortunate fate that they do not have a faculty members for this a long time. There are even 100 years old universities. There is 30-year-old faculty members sitting there and then running the whole show for PhD to diploma to certificate, and sometime we can't blame this
Exactly.
because it's a system issue. It's not a
Yeah.
faculty issue. It's a
Yeah.
system issue. The
Yes.
government need to take a very strong action.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but we very loudly shout saying there are no faculty members, no faculty members. But funnily, they don't recruit them. So
Exactly.
that is this imbalance. So we create opportunities, and you need to fight out. You need to be clear. You want to be a researcher. You want to be a performer. See, when you think of a great researcher, you'll get some name. When you think of a great critic, even after doing PhD in dance, you can become somebody like Ashish Mohan Khokar ji or Sunil Kothari ji or Leela Venkatraman ji, then many more. Or you can be a hardcore performer and a researcher combination like Kanak Ben or Padma ji, Padma Paduka, and this could be a combination. So everywhere you need to have a choice, and then you make a mark into that regard. And I think you really make a. If there are no opportunities, create an opportunity. Go fight for it. I'm in a place called Kadri. This is an absolute Anantapur district is known for Bargalaidu, and there's nothing except a temple. But here I'm trying to create this flavor of thing in it. And wherever I've gone, whether it's in first university, second university, we've always created a department. I created a department and said this exists. And in every meeting I went, when I was sitting in the meeting, it is so difficult because you have a boss or a vice chancellor who's not from your department, who doesn't get an ounce of what you're trying to even tell them. So you have to explain in the term of mechanical language or in electrical language that he could belong to. And it is so difficult. And sometimes they just don't want to understand. They say like this. So my faculty members were protected like this because I was a fighter. And today they're all in very successful careers, doing great name, fame for themselves. I'm very happy for all of them. But they need to also someday find their own way and make a new way for some more people like that. That is the intention.
That's nice. You mean to say that we need to be very, very clear on our intentions as to what are we going to do after the masters. That is something which is very much required. And I think, as you mentioned, probably very few are doing. I mean, few, matlab, very few universities are trying to do this. Looking at placements, because when you take up technical education,
Right.
which I am part of a college. So I know placements become the main criteria for joining for the students. Okay, if I join this college, I get placed. So that's the trend, and which is not there in dance, and people don't require to as of now. But as we see the trend, I think in past another decade, we would happen to give those kind of placement opportunities. Otherwise, it
Yes.
becomes difficult for universities to even call people to that could be another good thing, and also a contribution from the universities to the field of art in a very different formal way, rather, I would say. I think thank you so much on behalf of all of them whom you have helped. A big thank you to your concern, because it's very important these days, because it's not kind of recommending, but it is a part of the duty which the university had to do, and I think you've taken a personal strain to do it yourself and set an
No, I mean,
example.
I wouldn't have answered a question because I'm not just a dancer, but I'm also from a management background. And
Yeah, that's why I asked you the
planning
question.
and structuring was very clear for me when I had to do
Yes,
it. We
yes,
created
yes.
a trend, in our
Right.
campus. Practice saris and dhotis and veshtis became very common view, and the main intention was these youngsters. I don't want them to practice, but I want them to respect this art form. At least know
Correct.
that hey, what they're doing, is something great. So what something interesting and something equal to whatever
Something
others are doing.
meaningful.
So Hagagi Marbek. See, now I've got this PhD for evaluation. It is lying with me for a month. I have two PhD theses that have come, one from Punjab, one from Gujarat. Now this often keeps happening, and sometimes when you read 1,000 pages, you wonder what is the point of what they've written because you don't understand anything. It's a methodology problem. So
Yeah,
because
yeah.
methodology, Papa or Gothel, it's not that they don't know. It's not that I don't blame them that they don't know. It's just that they were not guided that ways or told that ways. So it's some universities take that responsibility to make sure they're very strict and stringent in the what they do. They're every single word and page and checked up. And some people don't really take that. And it's with all the departments in many universities anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, leading to this, whatever you ended your answer with, I would like to ask you something related to research, because I have 1 hour time, which is very, very short to discuss with a personality
Right.
like you. I have
Okay.
many more questions, so I'll just go very fast.
Yeah.
Related to research, we see that plagiarism is something which is very, very coming up in all technical fields. It's like zero toleration has been there from most of the universities now, but when we take up performing arts, because most of it is being taken from the different texts of different people and elaborations done by different scholars then, like centuries ago. So how do we get into this plagiarism check in this? Can you please educate the viewers about how plagiarism check is done in performing arts? Because when I compare it, because when we submit a PhD thesis, it goes through a plagiarism check in technical things, because
Very serious.
everywhere everything has to be new there, and we quote the person who has quoted. But if you take up an art, that too, especially a descriptive thesis, if the objective is about a descriptive methodology, then I think most of it would be from a literature survey or something like that than their own contribution to it. Probably a last chapter of analysis probably would have their own viewpoint. So does plagiarism check hold good in Indian performing art research, or no? Or how is it?
Plagiarism must hold good every single subject. Otherwise, your book will be reprinted 1 million times in your lifetime alone. So, what is the intention of plagiarism? Is the first fact we have the softwares like Turnitin or others where it's a very serious job. What is something that we must understand? I used to bring these people into my PhD research panel, and I used to tell them that, hey, you're going to find this. 29% or 40% or 50%, but you need to understand as to also why. So the evaluators also need to be educated about it as to what is copied and what is outcome
Correct.
not copied or
Correct.
something. And
Correct.
second thing, they need to be educated about the way of writing. The Indian dancers, Papa, most of the times they're only worried about practice or practitioners. So they don't really know the academic language. The language of academics is different from the language of communication. It's an absolute. You'll never write a first letter, or you'll never write a first person communication at all there. You'll never say, I found that
Exactly.
karnas were in the temples of this. You can never write this sentence in the thing. So this is where they really fail a lot. So they bring in some English experts. Then they tell the story. They would have written something, and these people wouldn't even check it. So that is where I think we fail terribly. At least we should know active voice and passive voice to get out of plagiarism. You know. So plagiarism is something that is a very serious software, but there are always nice ways. For example, Sunil Kothari ji in his book mentioned about this, or Mandakranta Bose
You mean to
mentioned
say
about
that quoting people properly wherever you have taken the source, quoting the source is very important for the
yeah.
book. Yeah.
So we go by chapters, for example,
Correct.
introduction is your own, so that cannot be much copied. But literature review will definitely have to quote unquote mention so many things. So
Yes.
you cannot be, so we don't consider the what has come out of valuation. So finally, in my regime as a head, when I we made a rule about 29% was maaf. We excused 29% of the plagiarism. Again, looking if the chapter could come from literature review and
Literature.
introduction, if that is from the output of their research, for example, from the time they start from data analysis, or from the conclusion, or from
Conclusion.
what they do, interpretation or inference, there it cannot be. The tolerance was absolutely zero. And
Zero.
as per the UGC's policy, up to 9% is accepted. Up to
Yes.
9% is still accepted today. And
Yes.
in the
Yes.
area of performing arts, we need to understand that the resources are very few. So obviously, end of the day, if you don't talk about Bharata, if you don't talk about Nandikeshwara, you wouldn't make any sense,
Correct.
irrespective of any topic you take in the world of
Exactly.
dance. So
Very true.
Hagagi,
Because I had this doubt because I come from a different background and I also
right.
practice dance. So I just recently submitted my thesis. So I was just wondering how did plagiarism can work in dance research because I haven't
No,
done
no, it
research.
does. It is serious actually. Some universities
Yeah,
are
but
very
as
open
you
to
said, probably
plagiarism.
it will be majorly in the literature section and it needs to be quoted to the resource. I mean,
See, I
sources
sit
needs to be.
today in the panel of many journals. I mean, many journals. I sit on the panel. So when research papers come to us, I mean, I can't just say it is plagiarized and throw it out. I need to just check what is
What is
plagiarized and then
exactly?
remove it. If the content, what they're actually trying to say, you can always write back to them and tell them, hey, your content is amazing. I think you have the output, but you need to restructure this just to avoid this amount of percentage. Otherwise, it will show red because Turnitin
Yeah,
makes it
yeah,
red.
yeah,
Whole
yeah,
paper looks red.
yeah.
So
Correct.
that is one, and you need to know little statistics to do some kind of a qualitative and quantitative analysis,
Quantitative
some
research. Yes.
empirical research, some
Yeah,
statistical
yeah,
data.
yeah, yeah.
Somewhere you at least need to know what is sample, you need to know what is design and what is structuring and what is cluster. So this amount of knowledge, I think, will make dancers not fall into the trap of plagiarism, because you'll be
Correct.
wondering, for example, aduvu maduvaga that dittakanaka jam tarikitaka. For example, typically that dittakanaka jam tarik, it is your mindset. And that doesn't mean you copied Ramaya Pillai Garu or whatever. You would have
Correct.
not been seeing what he did, by the way. But he can't claim for it because it's just the way you would come across and prove your point.
Excellent. So, going back to another perspective and another personality of Dr. Vasanth Ji is being a great composer because recently we have found a lot of this. I mean, you have given a great contribution to, which I want to mention here, that the two CDs which have been released recently are doing really well. And the music also has, yes, one on Kuchipudi and one on
This is
Bharatanatyam.
Kuchipudi, one is
Yes.
Bharatanatyam.
Yeah. So the especially the Varnam is very nice on Shiva.
Thank you. Thank
Personally, I really liked it. But
you.
apart from that, I think the CD is just a sample piece, as you rightly mentioned a couple of minutes ago, and you have a big bunch of compositions, as we read that more than 100 compositions. What inspired to get into this mode of becoming a lyricist for dance?
Uh, First of all, as I told you, that the language exposition actually made me familiar with lot of Tamil Varnams, lot of Telugu Varnams, lot of Kannada, lot of Malayalam compositions. I love padams in the structure of Malayalam and Manipravalam. But many a times as a male dancer, when you want to perform something, you want a particular sanchari, but that is not there. You want to perform a particular jati in the way you think this song would suit, but it's not there. You want to do a story because I was bored and tired of doing Makan Chori and Krishna and Takshana the moment you
Mhm.
show Fever Butter. I was really redundant, and there are so many other things because as you
Yes.
mature as a dancer, you start exploring the world of dance and world of
Correct.
mythology, world of history, world of stories. Natyam tan Natakan Chaiva. So Yelli Natakane illa. So this Kuchipudi helped me for Bharatnatyam. Bharatnatyam helped me for Kuchipudi. There were a lot of wonderful expositions that I learned from both of them, especially Kshetraya Padas and all. I went to Muva Gopala Temple,
Muvapuri.
sat there, literally picked up a lot of those works, and you go to the Kuchipudi village, the way they explain is fantastic. And then bring it to the language of Bharatanatyam and fix it. It's really amazing. And so I interact a lot with V.A.K. Rangarao Garu, one of the greatest scholars that the country has seen when it comes to compositions and authentication of the language. So he helps me for a lot of things. So I was inspired by that to start writing, and I wrote my own Pushpanjali. I said, I want a Pushpanjali. There's only 5 minutes, so why don't I write a Pushpanjali and add something on Guruvayurappa because we have a show in Guruvayur. So I started dedicating so wherever I perform, I used to do one song based on the deity there. And that song was my own composition because whatever I feel about that god I wrote. I am nothing in front of any great composers. I don't even call myself as a Vagyakara or whatever, but it is just an inner urge, especially when it comes to male oriented dances. There were very few. There are compositions, but that made me write. So why don't men have a feeling like, why Viraha is only for a woman, Nam Viraha yake nayakan gagalva, why don't we have feelings? So that provoked me to start writing a lot of compositions, and that picked up very seriously. Then somebody asked me if I can write a tilana. I have now written about 48 tilanas, close to 50
Wow.
tilanas in some of the rarest languages, rarest, I've even written Manipravalam, where a line is in Telugu and one line is in English, inspired by
English.
Karur
Oh,
Shivramayya's Javlis. I've written Hindi Javli. I've written Malayalam. I've written Telugu, Kannada, Tamil. So all of this was coming from the language love because I love languages. Um, that's one. And second was about each student come from their background. Like I had a Marathi student, and then there was this program in Maharashtra. Then I said, why don't I pick up one? And then we picked up from Geet Ramayana and analyzed it. And that was a big success because you perform Varnam or a Tarangam for about 45 minutes, people were clapping, of course. But when the moment you start a Marathi song, people connect it with you. Finally, what
understand.
does
Yeah.
Bharata says? Rasa, Swada, Rasa Nishpatti, Rasa Nishta, ivella agodu when it's a two-way communication. So we
Correct.
started
Yeah.
working on that language thing, and I think that tremendously helped me. That made me discover Marathi Padavarnams, Hindi Padavarnams written by quartet. And then I said, if they have done and dusted it and kept it already for us, English Telugu combination is not new. It is as old as
Yes.
1800. It is
Dikshitar
written.
also has done it. Yes.
Dikshitra has done a lot of notice for us,
Yeah.
which is in
Yeah.
the language of English, the tonality of Western. So
Correct.
I don't ನಾವೇನು ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. So ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಬರದೆ Telugu and predominantly Telugu I've written. But
Mhm.
for many dance teachers in Bangalore, I've written wonderful compositions in Varnas or Tilanas. I've written recently. I wrote a Swarapallavi for a particular guru. They asked for it because these are lost items. Jati Kattu anta there is something that is lost in Kuchipudi. So we are bringing them back to some of the compositions. So I think this is the other side of compositions because it's my own lyrics, tuning, and Natuanga. Jatis, I write my own. We don't take any outside jatis, and it's my voice there in the recording. So that when you dancer, when they ask me, I happily tell them what was it. It's nice because the somebody who's written this Vagyakara is alive. So I still remember CBC sir very funnily said in Telugu, he said, "Sir, if I'm doing any of this item, then nike phone chestan." I said, "Sir, there's nothing that I can tell you. But of course, if you want to know why I wrote that line, you can always call me. For example, uh, for a Nayaka, ఓ చెలి నమాట వినవే ఈ కోపమింకేలనే. Why are you angry? I mean, just listen to me once. Because always Khandita Naika concludes that this guy has gone wrong. Later, Mandidane and Tatra composition takes him into a very wrong picture. But
Wrong
I
picture.
said, by this composition that I've written says, give me one chance and let me explain you what has happened. If you probably listen to that, you might not even slip into Khandita, but you might become that Virodh Khandita that is longing to love, to meet me ಅಂತ ಅದು ಹೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಐ ಯೂಸ್ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕಲ್ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್. ಮುಗ್ಧವೈ ಆಟಲಾಡಿ, ಮಧ್ಯವೈ
Madhyavai.
ಮನಸ್ಸು ಪ್ರಗಲ್ಭವೈ ಸರಸಮುಲಾಡಿ. ಮುಗ್ಧ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ನನ್ನ ಜೊತೆನೆ ತಾನೆ ಯು ಪ್ಲೇಡ್ ವಿತ್ ಮೀ. ಆಸ್ ಅ ಮಧ್ಯ ಯು ಫೆಲ್ ಇನ್ ಲವ್ ವಿತ್ ಮೀ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಅ ಪ್ರಗಲ್ಭ ಐ ಟಾಟ್ ಯು ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಲವ್ ಗೇಮ್ಸ್. And for all the lifetime, did you see another woman with me ever doing anything? No, right? So one evening, one delay of my one trip, you concluded that I would have gone with somebody. So she sheds tears and goes back to him and apologizes. So Nayaka is given a chance. ಅಥವಾ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಬರ್ದಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಅವಳ ನೀನು ಕರೆತಾರೆ ಈ ವಿರಹನ ತಾಳಲಾರೆ ಅಂತ. ಅವಳ ನೀನು ಕರೆತಾರೆ ಈ ವಿರಹನ ತಾಳಲಾರೆ, ಅವಳ ನೀನು ಕರೆತಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ವಿರಹ. So that was why. So I wrote like whatever modes that Naika will have. I've composed all that as an answer. So a lot of my compositions are answers to the current existing compositions which support Naikas. What if that next Nayaka anta I've written a lot of them.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
that
Excellent.
was a very interesting thing.
I think
So
somebody should research on your compositions too and see how it could be a parallel, draw parallels about it. Because, contemporary writing is also very important because art is not only, like we see, sculptures in museum. It's not the end of it. We need to practice it and take it forward. I think it's a part of evolution, right? I mean, then now and forward we need to keep on the transition. I think that change is the
and
only constant thing. Yeah.
now, for example, you mentioned about the Varna that you said you really loved it.
Yes,
So,
yes.
but there we all brought in those words that we otherwise say about Nataraja or Chidambara in Natya Veda. I said Panchama Veda anta use
Correct.
ಮಾಡಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ Veda Patyah Samaveda Sangita Yajurveda Abhinaya Rasa comes from the Atharva. So
That's it.
this is clarified. Andre, at least if you know the song, half of Natyotpatti is
Some
learned.
slokas of Natya.
So it comes off there. And a lot of my compositions, you will see the mention of Sviya, the mention of Parakiya, the mention of Prauda, Anya, Samanya. So actually the word comes very sincerely. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದೆಲ್ಲೋ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಒಪ್ಪಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವವಳಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವಳು ಹೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ. But in other words, she is a samanya in the category
Correct.
of Bharata. So that
Correct.
ways I write these. Even Jatis I write according to the gods that suits according to them.
Excellent, excellent, Vasanji. It's been a really nice interaction with you. I think 1 hour is not an enough time to which to be allotted, but I think any dose should be given in a very small pinch so that it should not become overdose at any point of time. So we kept it to 1 hour. But personality like you should be explored more and more in different stages by all of us, basically, because getting associated with universities, working with other institutions is one part of it. But I think as dance community, I think there's a lot to take from you. And it's our responsibility that we involve you in this kind of informal learning too, because formal learning, yes, you will be taken away by the students who actually register to the course under you or come to your gurukulam, which is beautifully done in a place called Kadiri. But I think it's a responsibility of the dance community also to use how these kind of knowledge systems and knowledge treasures could be brought out and made available to the dance community. And slowly, I think you are in that motive too. I think the CD is an answer to that, because a lot of your moves I can analyze and get it to do. Why are you doing it? And it's nice to
Right.
know about all these motives which you are doing. It's a great job which you have been doing to all of us as dance community. We should thank you for that, and we look out for more and more guidance in terms of because especially as you mentioned, the research writing is completely new to the whole Indian research community only, be it technical. There are a lot of flaws which we generally do, because the research field itself is an upcoming avenue in India, research and development R&D. So a lot of governmental projects are also coming. There are sponsorships and things like that. There are scholarships given to it. I think people should seek out your help in those things, and I'm sure that you're always there for all the dancers to help. So thank you so much for being part of this 1 hour conversation. I think I took 10-15 minutes extra, but still, thank you so much. And
Just to
no
put
words.
a conclusive and as a just a conclusion part of it, thank you
Sure,
so
sure.
much for inviting any dancers if they are keen to do pursue, if they think I could be help them with. Many call me saying, "Sir, PhD I want to do, but then I don't really find a university or a guide. I don't find this." So I'm helping them because many don't know that you can do PhD in so many other universities. They're stuck with one or two they know here. But I have an option of about 10 to 13 universities where you can actually go and do your PhDs or masters sitting at home itself and all that. So there are these options which, so I always go, I'm ready to help them, but I'm very clear about methodology. I mean, one need to be drilled very seriously into methodology. I'm sure anybody can get into the route that I am. Thank you for inviting me and thinking that I could be worth being part of such
Oh
beautiful
God.
stuff that you are doing. And Kandit Waglu, my memory goes back when you came as a college student participant to Hubli, and from there to what I to see you here is an absolute wonderful journey. I keep watching your progress, and I love to look forward to see so many things. I've done this as a university. I called so many other great people, made them talk down to my students and etc. I know what is an outcome value of this. So you are going to really take a big out of this. So congratulations and thank you on behalf of all the male dancers for doing whatever you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, sir. We look out for
Namaskar.
more and more association in different ways with you in future.
Anytime,
Thank you.
anytime, anytime for dance and dance.
Sarve
Namaste.
jana sukhino bhavantu. Namaste.
Namaste.